At the end of the second chapter, we learned that the Arabic Empire declined and a new dynasty emerged known as the Turkish dynasty. So, in the third chapter, we learn more about the Turkish invasions. Now, a small passage or small extract from Al-Biruni's famous book Tahqiq Hind is given. So let us read this one. First, they differ from us in everything which other nations have in common. And here we first mention the language, although the difference of language also exists between the nations. If you want to conquer this difficulty, that is, learning Sanskrit, you will not find it easy because the language is of an enormous range, both in words and inflections, something like the Arabic, calling one and the same thing by various names, both original and derived, and using one and the same word for a variety of subjects, which, in order to be properly understood, must be distinguished from each other by various qualifying epithets. For nobody could distinguish between the various meanings of a word unless he understands the context. So this is about India. Now we will learn about the Turkish invasions. It is said by the 9th century, the Arab Empire had disintegrated, or it broke up into a number of independent kingdoms and empires. So, centered around the two cities of Ghazni and Ghor, two new kingdoms emerged. And the cities Ghazni and Ghor are in present-day Afghanistan. So these two cities were once very important towns and also two very prominent kingdoms emerged centering around these two cities. So the rulers from these two kingdoms changed the course of history. So the two rulers from these two kingdoms changed the course or the way, or it caused the progression. By the 10th and 11th centuries, North India had disintegrated, or North India had broken up into many small kingdoms. This political instability and tales or stories of India's fabulous wealth prompted many invasions. So the political instability, so there was no powerful political ruling in India, and also India was famous for its richness. This forced many invasions in India. In this chapter, we learn about two prominent kings, Mahmud of Ghazni and Muhammad of Ghori. So there were so many invasions in the Indian subcontinent in the 11th and 12th centuries. The first we will learn about the ruler Mahmud of Ghazni. So Mahmud of Ghazni was the son of a Turkish noble and the ruler of Ghazni named Subuktigin. So noble means one who is born in a royal family. So the father of Mahmud was Subuktigin, who was the ruler of Ghazni. So after his father, Mahmud became the king. Mahmud wanted to achieve glory as the greatest conqueror of the world. So he wished to become the greatest conqueror of the world. At that time, he also heard about the richness of the Indo-Gangetic plains. So he decided to loot or steal the rich wealth in India. So he plundered or he looted or he stole the region, this Indo-Gangetic plains, to replenish or to restore the treasury of Ghazni or to refill the treasury of Ghazni. He attacked India 17 times, that is from 1001 to 1025 CE, waging his jihad both for plunder and for the promise of paradise. So he attacked India based on the jihad for plunder and for the promise of paradise. And he also looted the rich temples of the northwest and also campaigned in Seistan and Multan, which were the important trading centers on the lower Indus River. He also fought with the rulers of Gaur to establish his superiority in this region. So here the meaning of the term jihad is given. Jihad means holy war of Muslims. Now in 1001 CE, Mahmud of Ghazni attacked Punjab and also the important cities of Ujjain, Gwalior, Kalinga, Kannauj and Delhi. Also attacked and raided rich cities, temple towns like Nagarkot, Multan, Alwar, Taneshwar, Mathura and Somnath. One of the most important attacks of Mahmud was on the Somnath temple, and the Somnath temple was a place of great reverence for the Hindus, or the holy important place for Hindus, because thousands of the believers gathered to defend this temple when Mahmud attacked. About 50,000 devotees lost their lives in their attempt to defend or protect this Somnath temple, which they consider as very sacred. So because of the attack, the temple lost 1,300 kilograms of gold and millions of dinars. So dinar is a currency used in many Arab countries. Mahmud was a successful general and a conqueror who never suffered defeat. So whatever he did was of great success. He was a great patron of art. So patron means a supporter of art, architecture and literature in his own country. Now the capital was Ghazni, and this capital was decorated with many beautiful buildings, and the buildings included mosques, libraries, a museum and a university. Now some of the scholars like Al-Biruni and the Persian poet Ferdowsi, who wrote the great epic Shahnameh, received his patronage. So these poets and these writers got patronage or support from Mahmud of Ghazni. Now in the beginning we read a passage, and it was said that that passage was taken from Al-Biruni's book called Tahqiq-i-Hind. So this book describes India and its various facets. So facets means aspect, feature or characteristic. Now, Al-Biruni spent about 10 years in India. And this book, Tahqiq Hind, is a rich source to know what India was like during that time. So from this book, we will get an idea of India during that time. So before he died, Mahmud annexed Punjab, or Mahmud conquered Punjab as the easternmost province of his empire. Mahmud died in 1030 CE, and this brought to an end to the frequent or the constant raids. Now, Mahmud's conquests did not produce any significant result because he failed to establish an empire here. Now, Mahmud was a warrior more than a man of faith. He plundered temples for wealth because he needed wealth to protect his kingdom from the ever-expanding kingdoms of Central Asia. He wanted to control the highly profitable trade in commodities like horses from Arabia. Now, this is seen as one of the reasons for Mahmud to have invaded Somnath, because he wanted to control some profitable trade. The wealth was acquired so that it helped him to buy mercenaries. In the first chapter, we learned that mercenary means foreign soldiers hired to serve in an army. So some soldiers hired or bought to serve in a foreign army. And also he used the wealth to beautify Ghazni and to enhance trade or to improve trade. A recent book by historian Romila Thapar suggests that it was economic interest and not religious intolerance that prompted Mahmud of Ghazni to overrun Gujarat. So reason to conquer Gujarat was not based on any religious tolerance. He didn't have any problem with religion, but his main aim was to acquire wealth so that he can expand his kingdom and he can refill his treasury. And a picture is given of the tomb of Mahmud of Ghazni, and you can see the doors of the Somnath temple, which are made up of sandalwood. So this was taken from the Somnath temple. Now, a very small information. Mahmud of Ghazni enrolled an army in India, and he placed this army under his noted general Tilak, who was a Hindu. He used this army against his co-religionists, or the people who have the same religion, as well as in Central Asia. The temple of Somnath had the most wonderful Shiva Lingam, which seemed to float in mid-air without any visible support from above or below. It was, in fact, held in place by a magnetic force field. Now we will learn about Muhammad of Ghori. After a gap of almost 150 years, that is in 1175 CE, a Turkish ruler of a small kingdom in Afghanistan named Muhammad Ghori attacked northwest India. This laid the foundation of Turco-Afghan rule in India. There were 5 major Rajput kingdoms when Muhammad Ghori invaded India. These were the Rathors of Kannauj, the Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer, the Solankis of Gujarat, the Paramaras of Malwa, and the Chandaras of Bundelkhand. As these are local places, these places may not be pronounced in the way I pronounced. So you can see the places written here. In 1175 CE, Ghori invaded and captured Multan, and next he defeated the Solanki rulers of Gujarat. He also conquered Peshawar, Sialkot, and Punjab. The famous battles fought by Muhammad Ghori were the first Battle of Terrain, which was fought in 1191 CE, and the second Battle of Terrain, which was fought in 1192 CE, and these two battles were against Prithviraj Chauhan. In the first Battle of Terrain, Muhammad Ghori was defeated by Prithviraj and he just managed to escape with his life. But the second time he came with a larger army and defeated Prithviraj in the second Battle of Terrain. And later he also defeated Jaychand, who was the ruler of Kannauj, and conquered it in 1198 CE. Now the second Battle of Terrain was a turning point in history because the second Battle of Terrain marked the end of the Rajput rule in northern India. Now, the conquered territories were made a province of Ghori's empire, and Qutbuddin Aibak, who was one of his generals, was appointed its governor. Qutbuddin Aibak further expanded the empire by conquering Mathura, Gwalior, Bundelkhand and Malwa. Bakhtiyar Khalji, who was another general of Ghori, conquered Bengal and Bihar. And Muhammad Ghori was killed by the Khokars in 1260 when he was trying to crush or suppress a revolt led by the Khokars. And Muhammad Ghori had no son to succeed him, so all his governors became independent rulers after his death. And a power broke out among these, fight for the power broke out among these governors, and Qutbuddin Aibak asserted his independence and he laid the foundation for a new empire. Now the invasion of Muhammad Ghori was different from the invasion of Mahmud of Ghazni because Mahmud of Ghazni was, as we learned earlier, was only a warrior who tried to conquer and loot the wealth of India. His only intention was to acquire wealth, but Muhammad Ghori attempted to build an empire, so we can say that Muhammad Ghori was the founder of the Turco-Afghan rule in India. Now let us learn the causes of the success of invasions. So the success of invasion means the defeat of the Rajputs. So we will discuss what were the reasons that led to the defeat of the Rajputs. So one reason was the Rajputs had a weak war machinery. They fought with slow-moving elephants. When the Turkish soldiers were attacking very violently and very fast. Okay, that technique is known as Central Asian guerrilla fight. Also, the Central Asian guerrilla warriors defeated the slow-moving elephants used by the Rajputs. Now, internal jealousy and hatred bred disunity. Because of the internal jealousy and hatred in the citizens or in the people of the Rajput kingdom resulted in the weakening of the Rajput kingdom. And especially the disunity between or the hatred between Prithviraj and Jaychand at the crucial moments. So there is a reason for the hatred between Jaychand and Prithviraj. So this story is given. So a long epic poem known as Prithviraj Raso. So this poem narrates the story of Prithviraj, who fell in love with the daughter of his enemy, the king of Kannauj. When the time came for the princess to marry, all the suitors were assembled in the court of Kannauj so that she could make her choice. Prithviraj, however, had not been invited. Instead, a statue of him as a doorkeeper was placed outside as an insult. But the Princess Sanyogita had already made her choice. She walked straight up to the statue and placed her garland around its neck, whereupon Prithviraj, who had been hiding nearby, emerged, and they both rode off to his capital. This is the reason why Raja Jaychand of Kanauj did not help Prithviraj Chauhan in the battle against Gauri. So this is the story. The feudatory nature of the society. So the overlordship of the higher authority led to the decline of Rajputs as rulers had no standing army. So standing army means a permanent army, and had to depend on feudal lords. So the Rajputs rulers did not have a permanent army or permanent soldiers. They always had to depend on feudal lords. And some more reasons: lack of leadership and clashes or fights between the feudal lords further weakened the king. Since they came from far-off lands, the Turco-Afghans were more determined to win and fought with more vigor than the Rajputs. Now the impact of the raids of Muhammad of Ghori in India. So as in the past, these invasions led to the intermingling of cultures or the mixing up of cultures. The Islamic culture brought with it the concept of a single formless God. So we already learned that Islam believed in a single formless God. Now each influenced the customs and traditions of the other. So each means Muslim custom and traditions and Indian customs and traditions influenced each other, and gradually a composite culture of what India represents today was formed. Thus, Indo-Islamic contacts resulted in the emergence of a composite culture, a mixed culture which was manifested. So this can be seen in the architecture. You can see in architecture both the Indian architecture as well as the Muslim architecture, language, music and food of those times. And besides this, these invasions also opened the subcontinent to migration of people in large numbers, and they came as soldiers, traders, workers, and they all settled in India. Now, as in the past, all cultures again got immersed in the unique Indian way of life. Besides the plurality of cultures, so besides the differences of cultures, these invasions also brought in another political contender or another political competitor to the northern part of India. So that we'll learn in the next chapter. Apart from the Rajputs and many other smaller kingdoms from central India, the successors of Muhammad of Ghori were also able to suppress the local kings and gradually build their empire in India, beginning with the slave dynasty. So this we will learn in the next chapter. So now moving on to the exercises. Mahmud of Ghazni was the son of Subaktuddin. Mahmud of Ghazni patronized scholars like Ferdowsi and Al-Biruni. The Indo-Islamic contacts resulted in the emergence of a composite culture. Bakhtiyar Khalji, a general of Ghori, conquered Bengal and Bihar. Al-Biruni wrote a book on India called Tahqiq-i-Hind. Now the match the following. First battle of Terrain was defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. Muhammad Ghori was the founder of a new empire. Qutbuddin Aibak was a Turkish ruler. Ferdowsi was a Persian poet, and Mahmud Ghazni looted Somnath temple. Now, true or false? Muhammad Ghori looted and plundered the Somnath temple. So it's a false statement. Prithviraj and Jaichand failed to unite and fight against Muhammad Ghori. True. Persian poet Ferdowsi wrote the great epic Shahnameh. True. Qutbuddin Aibak was one of the most trusted general of Muhammad Ghazni. False statement. The capital city of Ghazni was adorned with beautiful buildings. True. And before doing the answer following questions, let us study photo study questions. So you all know that this are the remnants of the Somnath temple. So identify the ruins and its location. So the answer is Somnath temple, India. The second question, why was it necessary for the Hindus to defend it or to protect it? It was a city of great reverence for all Hindus. Third question, who attacked it and what was the purpose behind the attack? So Mahmud of Ghazni attacked it in order to loot the wealth of the temple. Now moving on to the answer the following questions section. First question, who was Mahmud of Ghazni and why did he invade India? So the answer is Mahmud wanted to achieve glory as the greatest conqueror of the world. Second point, he plundered the fabulous wealth of the Indo-Gangetic plains to replenish the treasury of Ghazni. And the last point, he attacked India 17 times from 1001 to 1025 CE, waging his jihad for plunder as well as a promise of paradise, and looted the rich temples of the northwest and campaigned in Seistan and Multan. And the second question, why were Indian temples targeted by Mahmud of Ghazni? So Indian temples of that time were famous for their riches. The wealth thus acquired after looting temples helped Mahmud to buy mercenaries to beautify Ghazni and enhance trade. And the third one, name the 5 Rajput kingdoms during Muhammad Ghori's time. So there were 5 major Rajput kingdoms when Muhammad Ghori invaded India. So these were the Rathors of Kannauj, the Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer, the Solankis of Gujarat, the Paramaras of Malwa, and the Chandalas of Bundelkhand. Fourth question, why were the first and second battles of terrain important? So the reasons are, the famous battles fought by Muhammad Ghori were the first and second battles of terrain, fought in 1191 and 1192 CE respectively against Prithviraj Chauhan. The second battle of terrain was a turning point in history as it marked the end of the Rajput rule in northern India. And that's all. And the fourth question, why were the first and second battles of terrain important? So, the fifth question, how did the invasion of Muhammad Ghori differ from the invasion of Mahmud of Ghazni? So this is the answer. The sixth one, what were the causes of the success of invasions in the 11th and 12th centuries? The answer is given on page 33 and 34. You can write any 3 or 4 points according to the marks. And the last one, what was the impact of the raids that took place during this period? This is the answer. These are the first 2 points and this point is the last one. So these are the answers of the questions.